Okay. Hey everybody, it's me, Caitlin, and I'm going to be presenting to you today on an intermittent reinforcement schedule known as a ratio schedule of reinforcement. The objectives of this presentation are going to be to define what a ratio schedule is and the different variations, how to implement one effectively, and when and why we would need to either thin the schedule or transition to a different schedule. So first, let's define what a ratio schedule of reinforcement is. It's when a certain number of correct responses or desired behavior is positively reinforced. A ratio schedule isn't really concerned with how long it takes for a behavior to occur, but how many times the behavior has occurred. There's two types of ratio schedule, fixed ratio and variable, and we will dig deeper into those in just a second, but there's one more term I want to talk about, and that's thinning. And thinning is when you gradually reduce the need for an artificial reinforcement. So first, a fixed ratio schedule. This is when a set number of desired behavior occurrences will always produce a reinforcement. It builds off a continuous reinforcement schedule, or fixed ratio 1. Fixed ratio 1 schedules mean when the behavior occurs once, it's reinforced. This is ideal for establishing an expectation, but once it's been established, a different fixed ratio like a FR2 or FR3 should be used to maintain the behavior. It's very important to transition to avoid satiation of the reinforcer. Two important things about fixed ratio schedules. First, it's important to talk to your students specifically about what the schedule is to ensure that the expectations are clear and that there's trust between you and that student. And second, compound your reinforcements. Put your artificial reinforcement on one schedule, but keep natural reinforcers on a more continuous schedule. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. The major weakness of a fixed ratio schedule is the student may take a post-reinforcement pause. This means that when you change the ratio levels, it may challenge the student and they might take longer to get that reinforcement again. Behaviorist B.F. Skinner used a machine he created called the cumulative recorder to track post-reinforcement pauses. You can see from this graph that a fixed ratio schedule creates kind of like a staircase effect. So to counteract a post-reinforcement pause, it's important to transition to a variable ratio schedule. And this is a schedule that reinforces based on an average number of times a behavior will occur, making the reinforcement still obtainable, but less consistent and unpredictable. And it's important to note that this unpredictability causes no post-reinforcement pause, as you can see in this chart, also by Skinner. Instead, variable ratios sustain high rates of response. Here's a quote by B.F. Skinner on the subject of variable ratio schedules. He says, "The probability of reinforcement at any moment remains essentially constant, and the organism adjusts by holding to a constant rate." Now, with this unpredictability, do variable ratio schedules work? Of course they do. Variable ratio schedules of reinforcement are what keep places like Las Vegas in business. Now, there's one more topic that I want to cover, and that is how to thin a variable ratio schedule, a last step in the process of modifying behavior. And yes, thinning should occur. Ratio schedules are meant to be temporary. First, we don't want a student to have a dependence on an artificial reinforcer in order to perform a behavior. And second, remember that our goal is to teach. Part of living in this world is experiencing delayed gratification, and that's something that has to be taught. A good tip when thinning is to do it gradually. This prevents what's known as ratio strain. Ratio strain is when a reinforcer is thinned too quickly and the behavior is not modified. If you find this happening when you practice, simply go back to the previous schedule that did yield results and start reinforcing again. And remember to slow down. There is no need to rush. Just like everything else, if you want real results, you have to put in the time and the effort. Slowly but surely, you'll notice a difference in behavior. Another tip is to keep a natural or social reinforcer on a fixed ratio 1 schedule, even after thinning the artificial reinforcer out. Saying good job or way to go is completely natural and something the student will encounter in their everyday life. So it's very appropriate to continue using these social reinforcers. Overall, ratio schedules are a way to positively reinforce students to perform desired behaviors. By taking our time and implementing a schedule such as this one, we get to see the positive results and the student gets to learn about appropriate behaviors. For further information, you can check out any of these resources. I personally recommend B.F. Skinner's Science and Human Behavior. I found it really beneficial for this project. Anyway, thanks for watching.